Hi everyone, and welcome to the next instalment of my conversion of a Dragon's 1/35th scale M7 Priest into one that are used by the Canadians on D-Day. In this video we're going to be looking at how we can use oils in the weathering process through the oil paint rendering system. So if that's something you'd like to learn a little bit more about, then feel free to pull up a chair, have a brew, and let's go do some modelling. So first off, as you can see, I've already been doing some of the weathering on the lower hull here with the transmission unit, using some dust and dirt and brown colours to create the effectiveness of the piece that you can see there. Also with the seats, I added some green tones and some dust tones, and basically added a lot of wear and tear in there around the chipping that was achieved when we did the acrylic work. And then finally we have the back panel here. As you can see, some of the weathering has come out really well with the splatter marks and the layering. So what we're going to do is show you how we can create these looks by using the central panel. First of all, you need to get yourself a palette. As you can see, we've put the green oils along the top with the earth and brown colours along the side. All the linseed oil is soaked into the cardboard over the course of a day, and we have some light colours and some oil grease there as well. What you also need is some application brushes as well as some blending brushes. I like to use Rosemary Round 2s, which are a very good brush indeed. And then what we'll also need is a piece of towel so that you can wipe off any of the excess thinner and judge the amount of paint that you're going to be adding. And we have a couple of pots of thinners, one which is the dirty one for cleaning up the brushes, and one to clean them through. So here's just some stills of the work that's already been done. And as you can see, it's all a matter of layering the paints, putting down a base layer, then adding some more dirt and grime along with some splatter marks and dust work as we go. But I was really pleased with how the lower hull had done. One quick pro tip, in between your sessions with your oil paints, stick them in the fridge. This will give them a long life. Could last up to 1 or 2 months using the same palette. When you take it out of the fridge, just break up the crusty layer if needed, and just add a little bit of thinner before you start. So what we're going to do first is just clean off the area using some thinner, just to get rid of any sort of dust or grime that may have been there during the time that it's been stored away. And what we want to do is to start adding some green tones. So I'm using the Winsor & Newton permanent green light here, and we'll just add a small amount into the corner of this particular panel, because I wanted these two panels to stand out from the rest. And then we just get the blending brush and blend it in, and keeping it within the lines as best as we possibly can. And there we go. Now, as you can see from the way I'm doing this, there's not a lot of thinner applied. And now we're going for one of the darker greens. In this particular case, it's Faded Green by Absalom 501. Now this time it's a little bit more thinner being added, so it's a bit more of a wash consistency. And again, we can just apply it in the areas where we want to, and then getting the brush, using that stippling effect, we can blend it all out to create a different shade. Try and work your way around the chips that you've done and the dry brushing with the silver work as best you possibly can, so that you don't lose all of that detail. And here I skipped one panel and moved on to the next one, just to give the impression of variety of different colour, as you can see there. And then lastly, I decided to use some permanent sap green and some olive green from Winsor & Newton. Again, all oils. Simple process yet again. This time, because they're slightly darker, we want to go into the more of the recesses. When we do the blending, we want to try and start introducing the illusion of streak marks and water marks as well. So when we do the vertical planes, when we do the blending rather than doing the stippling, we'll actually use the up and down motion to create those streak marks. And it's just a matter of going along, using your own imagination, using reference material to work out where the darker areas would be. And again, on the horizontal planes, just blend it out using the stippling effect. And what this does now is I've got 4 different shades of green on the base acrylic coats of green, and that will now give us a nice variety and interest to that floor space, as you can see here. Now what I did was to actually attach the floor panel to the main hull. This is because we want to start creating some dust effects along the edges as well as the tops of the whole of the hull and of the flooring. So here I'm mixing some of the dust tones. These are the Absalom ones, light dust, cream dust, etc. So don't be afraid to mix your palette with your dust, because again that adds interest to the tones. And now what we want to do is just to add small amounts around the edges, because this is obviously where the dust is going to accumulate the most, making sure that it's sort of an ink-like consistency. And then we'll get that blending brush, and using the stippling effect we'll blend it out. Now I haven't used any type of varnishes or protectors in between the oil layers. There's no need to do it. Just make sure that it's all dry and ready to go, because the little amount of thinner that you use in this process, you don't have to worry too much about it mixing together. What I decided to do here is just use some earth tones. I don't go too overboard with the earth tones at this stage, so just a little bit of yellow ochre and raw sienna from Winsor & Newton, just to add the odd sort of earth patch here and there, just to add some interest and some believability to the weathering process. Same process with the application and just blending out as well. And there we go. That's worked out really well. What we need to do in between each layer of colour is to add on some stippling effect, some splatter effects. Just a matter of putting some thinner onto your craft knife, and then very gently using your brush, downward motion, creating those spots of oil. With the dust, you don't have to worry about too much about how much you apply, because a lot of it's going to get blended out with the other layers. However, if there are any large spots you don't like, you can blend them out at this stage with a moist brush. So with that dry, it was a matter of then moving on to the Raw Umber by Winsor & Newton, which is basically dirt in a tube. And what we're going to do now is create some of those shadow effects on the leading edges of the panels. And what we're doing now is using even less thinner now, because obviously you've got a few layers of oil down. You don't want to be taking that off. And there we go, blending that out gives an extra bit of dirt effect. And there we go, we went around the whole of the flooring adding that particular colour. And then what I wanted to do was just to improve the shadow work on the edges. So here I'm applying some burnt umber from Winsor & Newton again. And here, that, as you can see from the video, very little thinner on here at all now. It's quite neat. The brushes are only moist as far as thinner goes. And then we can blend that out, and that gives a lovely combination with the raw umber and that dust work, as you can see there. So that was done in the particular areas, and as you can see, some splatter marks were added again. And once those had dried, it was then a matter of applying an oil wash. Now, with a normal wash, there'd be a lot of thinner applied, and you'd use capillary action for it to go around. If you do that at this stage on your oil work, you're just going to ruin all of the look that you've already created. So using as little thinner as possible, what you now need to do is to just paint in and highlight those lines. The oil that I'm using here is Sepia from Abteilung 501. And then once you've done all the lines, the panel lines and the areas that you want, you really need to just let this dry. And then once it has dried, you can go back with your blending brush and just blend it all out, and that will give you the final layer of colour that you require. So really pleased how that all turned out, and basically those processes will be used for the panels. Again, adding on your dust work, your dark, then on to your darker colours, as you can see here, creating some shadows and streaking effects to add interest to those particular panels. And I was really pleased with how all of that turned out. And this little panel will go on top of the other panel like so, and that will be done once all the panels are put together later on. And here's some stills so you can see that in more detail. As far as the actual gun carriage went, really enjoyed doing this particular part of the build. Lots of creativity using reference material, finding out where things were worn, where the shadows were, where the dust collected, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. Can't quite see it on the video, but there is chipping on these front guards. And it's just a matter of using the oils to accentuate and to improve those. And there'll be a little bit of dust work to go on there later. And the actual barrel itself, very pleased with how the rope turned out. The actual steel area at the back there, that was further enhanced later on with some more acrylic work, because a little bit of green had gone on there, but overall very pleased. And again, here are some stills showing you the work. While you're looking at these, I'll just mention that I'm not doing any pigment work at this stage. That will all be done near the end of the complete build itself. So the actual canister holders, really pleased how these went. Got some lovely patination there on both of those. And those were all ready to get put in. Now, as far as the front panel goes, there's a little control panel that needs to go on there. During the acrylic stages, I masked that off using Tamiya tape. This will obviously help with the adhesion process with the glues. So it was just a matter of removing the Tamiya tape, cleaning up the plastic, and then that was ready for the dials to be added. The Voyager PE kit came with this clear plastic set, so it's a matter of just getting the sharp craft knife, cutting that to size, and then using some CA glue to stick that on the back. And then that was added to the plastic, and as you can see, it's come out really well. While we got that picture there, the flashlights and the canisters was added. That's the best picture I can get. It does look a lot better if you can see it in daylight yourself. Using the Mini Art oil cans and fuel cans. Yes, I know they're in civilian colours, but I just wanted to add a bit of variety and a bit of colour. You'll see a little bit of a glimpse of these, so I wasn't too concerned, but yeah, it was a nice addition. And then it was a matter of adding on the panels themselves. I must say Dragon have really excelled themselves with this kit. Everything fitted in beautifully. The scratch built side panels, yeah, not too bad either. A little bit of alteration here and there, but I was really pleased with how it all went. I've taped in the right hand side just to give you an idea. I've had to leave that off for the moment because of access to put the other parts in. But this just gives you an idea of what it's going to look. Now, we had a bit of an issue with the canister holders. Unfortunately, my scratch-built girders coming down were too long, so I had to do a bit of an emergency job on getting those trimmed back a bit. But as you can see here with the canisters, you can't see the changes, so that's fine. The corner bit, just put a little bit of milliput sheeting on there. The blanket on top, that's made from a piece of foil covered in micropore tape. Just give it that little bit of texture, and that sort of cleans up that back corner and also resembles one of the reference photos. That was given a colour of yellow brown acrylics, and the top was painted in dark grey along with some brush painted deck tan on top. So that was the acrylic work, and then I just added some oils for weathering. The Panzart number 19 radio set went together really well. That was put in the corner there, and that was painted up and chipped in the usual way, using black primer for the base, and then I just used metallic paints and deck tan for the front portion, and like I say, some oils in that for the weathering. But really pleased with how that was sitting there. Again, another quick pro tip: if you want to make some rope, get yourself some nylon thread. Don't use cotton, because that will go all furry when you paint it. And make yourself a little jig here. It's very basic, just a cocktail stick cut in half. There's 10mm in between the cocktail sticks, which is about the right length and scale for 1/35. Wrap it around, put a little bit of CA glue in there to keep it all together. Trim it up, and then just give it a quick paint. Obviously this was the very first coat of paint. They'll still need some weathering that to be done, but that just gives you an idea of, again, building up that corner with some equipment. So this is where I am at the moment. I'll be perfectly honest with you, I've had enough now of doing this interior. Yes, there's still weathering to be done, there's pigment work to be done, there's a load of stowage that's got to be added in there, lots of little detailing still to be done. But like I say, I'm really keen to crack on with this build and scratch build the engine covers and the rear exhaust. So for the time being, this is all going to be covered up now and put away for a few weeks while I carry on with the outside of the build. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much indeed for your continued support of my work. To all of my subscribers, I really do appreciate your support. And it just leaves me to say happy modelling, everybody.